Afternoon and welcome to another day. I'll be in the barn. I just had to do some chores around the house, and the wife had to go get some medicine for the father-in-law, so I got to come out in the barn. It's a beautiful day outside, and I wish I were golfing, but I'm not. Anyhow, we're back on that Bronco 2, getting these pads off of the axle. It's a 3 1/4 inch axle. What I decided to do, since I couldn't get them off there, it was taking too long, take the plasma cutter and cut them off, grind it down flush, repair anything that I need to on the axle, and then I'm going to go ahead and build some new mounts and then put them over where they need to be. So that's what's coming next. So I got to get the plasma cutter set up, and then I can start cutting those off. The reason I wasn't using the plasma cutter yesterday is because it's not mine. My buddy was at work, so I had to wait for him to get off work. And when he got off work last night, I went over and got his plasma cutter so I could use it today. So let's see if we can make a mess. I'm probably right in the way of the camera. Try to cut my chisel in half so I can get it out. Alright, there's half. That sure was a lot easier. Yeah, I like it. Trying to cut that a little bit closer so I got a little bit less grinding to do. Alright, so I cleaned the slag off with my chisel, just tapping it. I found some flap disc. I got plenty of flap disc, so I guess that's what I'll use to clean these up with. I'll get started on this one here and move on to the other one when this one's done. I do love me a new flap disc. They work wonderfully. So I'm not going to make you watch me do the rest of it. I'm going to go ahead and finish cleaning that one up, clean this one up, and then go on from there. Alright, I got both sides cleaned up. As you can see, them lines in there, that was my fear when I was cutting it off with the grinder yesterday that I'd get in too deep, start cutting into the axle. So I'm gonna have to take and get the MIG welder hooked up and weld those grooves in, because I don't want any weak points in this axle. And I said before, my buddy cut his off with a plasma cutter, got too deep, and it was leaking oil, and we tried to weld it up, and you know when oil gets in a weld, it just don't weld. So I want to make sure that we have enough heat to make a good weld, but not too much heat that we burn a hole in it. So that's what I'm going to do next. And you know, that's what they make a grinder for. Alright, I'm happy with that. Probably won't have to mess with the one on the outside because the pad is going to be moved inside. So I'll probably just leave that one alone. Clean up the inner one to make sure that if the pad's going to hit there, that it's nice and smooth surface. Alright, so you can see the original pad is 5 inches long for the leaf spring pad, and I'm going to make my own. It's 5 inches by about 2 3/8. So I'm going to make my own. I'm going to change it to 7 inches long and probably 2.5, because that'll be easier to measure. So I got some 3/8 or excuse me, some 1/4 inch flat stock, which is what this is here, what these were originally made out of. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it, mark it, weld it, and then they'll be ready. So as you can see, while I was over getting my buddy's plasma cutter, I borrowed his chop saw as well. So I got that. Like I said, I got the flat bar. It's 4 inches wide, and I'm going to cut these at 7 inches a piece. Alright, in between getting my tape measure and coming back over here, I decided I'm going to make them 6 inches instead of 7. 3 inches in the center hole would be perfect. There it is, 6 inches. There we go, let's see. I got it marked where I wanted. I'm going to stand it up now and cut it. Right, was it? He's got the gauge here moved up a little bit. But it was too hard to try and mark it while I was standing up. Just going to use this piece I just cut right here for my guide. Got to do that a couple more times, and I got to cut my 2.5 inch piece and I can get them all set up, drill my holes. I only need to drill the holes in the 2.5 inch piece, but then I'm gonna take and mark the radius for a 3.25 inch axle on there and cut it out with the plasma cutter. So, show you what's going on after I get the rest of the pieces cut. Okay, I'm sure you remember that I said that the original was 2 3/8 wide, and I said I was gonna make this one 2.5. Well, I lied. This is also gonna be 2 3/8, because what I'm going to do is take the piece I just cut that's 4 inches wide and cut it right down the center with an 1/8 inch blade there. It's going to take an 1/8 out. I'm going to cut this piece a 1/16 off of each side. So it's going to be 1 15/16 inches. So this will be a 2 7/16 wide, because I'm going to put it in between the two outer halves like that. That's going to give me a 1/2 inch. So you got 1 15/16 and a 1/2 inch is going to give you 2 7/16. Well, that's how we're going to do that. Now if I can find the center here, which is 2 inches, so it shouldn't be hard, and put my blade right on the line, 1 15/16 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll go to the next step. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is clean these couple pieces up. They're going to be in the center, and then I'm going to get them nice and lined up. I'm going to tack them together so they don't slip. Take them over to the drill press. After I mark them, drill the center hole in them. Then I'm going to take the side pieces, I'll clean those up, tack them together, mark my radius, and then I'll take the plasma cutter and cut them out. First thing I'm going to do is just knock off the edges off of this. Actually, what I'm going to do while I'm here is clean up all of them. The reason I made them this wide is because I actually wanted to give it a little bit more lift off the axle back there, so that's why I made them this wide. So I started building my perch pads for the back, leaf springs, and I got a hole drilled in the center, got the radiuses cut for the axle. I'm welding it together now. Like I said, I was going to put the flat plate inside of the two outer plates in order to give it the width that it needed. But because I did that, I went ahead and tacked it on here and tacked it underneath, but I ground grooves here between the two plates so that I could get some filler weld down inside there. And it probably would have been fine the other way. I'm just going to make sure that there's good penetration there by putting in a bevel and filling it up with weld. That makes me confident that that's going to hold better. I grind this flat at the top so the leaf springs will sit down on there flat. At least I know I got penetration down into the both pieces of metal, not just running over the top of a crack where the two pieces butted together. Ooh, that's hot when you got a hole in your glove. So this plate here is on top is for the other piece. I just put it in there to hold the distance while I welded this up. Find something to grab it with so I can put it in the vise and grind that top off. Try the next one, I'll bevel it before I even start to weld it, then there won't be the grinding. I'll keep cleaning this up and then I'll get back to you. Okay, this is what I decided to do since I didn't have any grinding disc. Is use my burr on the end of my die grinder here. And it was working really good on one side. I got it all done. And then it wasn't working so good. I couldn't figure out what it was. Until I said, oh yeah, my welder's on. So I had to unplug my welder and plug my air compressor back in because it was very low on pressure. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this other side. That takes it down a lot quicker. Got the first one made. Got a piece of metal in my finger. I'm using that stupid burr. There's the top of the first one. If it's cooled off, I'm going to go ahead and take that brace off that I put in there. And then start on the second one. Alright, so here we have it here. Let me get it some light on it. Here we have it. It's got a nice 3 1/4 inch radius on it, both sides, welded inside. Now I'm going to put a little piece across here, I'm sure, when I'm done, before I'm done, on both ends, just to keep it steady. And I'm going to cut angles on here like this to take some of that mass off of the corners there so they don't catch on nothing. I'll go ahead and probably cut it and round it with the plasma cutter just so it doesn't catch on anything before I end up putting them on. Anyway, that's one done. I'll go ahead and do the second one. Now, like I said, on this one I'm just going to go ahead and bevel the edges on both sides, and then also on the bigger pieces I'll bevel those edges so that I get good penetration there, so it'll make me feel better. Yeah, that looks good. That's about half the thickness. Got a nice bevel on it. Flip it over, do the other side. Again, like I said, I've beveled about half the thickness, and now my phone's ringing. Okay, I got the top beveled. I got it secured on the back. I'm going to go ahead and run a bead down both sides here, and then flip it over and hit the inside. I know that running downhill ain't the best weld. It's not completely downhill, it's an angle. Sure makes it lay in a lot nicer, so that's what I'm doing. Beautiful. Shouldn't even have to grind this one. She's a beauty. She's a little hot. We'll let that one cool down. And we'll pop those pieces off that were holding it straight. Well, I just wanted to show you that we got the springs on there. They're not on there tight or anything. We got the pads on there, the perch pads, and they're just tacked in one spot just so they don't move. We get the engine and transmission set back on here. We'll have to figure out what angle we need our rear end at. So now we can roll it out in the front part of the shop, so we have room to get it in there and do that. But my stepson's getting married tomorrow, so I won't be doing that. Kevin says he's got work in his own pole barn that's more important than mine. So I thank him for coming over today and helping me with this. So till next time, when we'll be in the barn.